I'm Kelly Neal, and this is Thoughts from a TV Geek. So, as you can see from the intro, this is Thoughts from a Gaming Geek today. Doing something a little different. We've done it a few times, it's been fairly successful, so I decided to do it again. Now, first off, I should start by saying Sean couldn't make it today, so we're in a totally different studio, and that's why everything looks different. Also, the wall behind me, you're probably wondering what's all that stuff hanging up there. Well, I'm going to tell you. We're going to be talking about gaming. Specifically, we're going to be talking about tabletop gaming. And I run a Vampire the Requiem game every Sunday night. And behind me are all the NPCs that the player characters run into. They're all different pictures. They're models and actors, and just doing a Google search. Also, there's a map, couple of maps there. So I just have that on the wall behind me. And I decided since we're going to be talking about gaming, I would just leave it there. Recently, I got into a discussion with someone about being a game master and what that all entails. Um, the truth of the matter is, everyone has their own style. No matter which RPG game you're playing, and for those of you that don't know, RPG means role playing game. That's all it stands for. And the tabletop games obviously are you're sitting around a table with people, you have a character that you create, and when your character wants to do certain things, you roll dice. Other than that, it's almost like improv acting, really. You make all the decisions for your character. Now, unlike playing an RPG game, a video game, in an RPG tabletop game, there is what's called a game master. In Dungeons and Dragons, they tend to call him a dungeon master. In Vampire, they tend to call them a storyteller. But either way, it's a game master. And game master has been used probably for the last 20 years as just a generic game master, for all types of RPG games. So, um, I got into this discussion with this person about game mastering, and my views on it have always been you're the game master, it's your game, your rules apply. No matter what you're playing, um, how you play, what kind of adventure or story this is going to be, that's all up to you and your players. That's for me, it's total cooperative storytelling, 100%. The players are also helping to tell the story. Why? Because they're the ones that are making the decisions. They are deciding how they're going to solve this problem. When they meet this guy, they're going to decide, do they want to kill him or do they want to work something out, work out a deal? It's not up to the storyteller to tell the players what they decide. It's up to the game master to bring out the creativity in the players. You never want to hinder a player from doing what he's decided would work that you never thought of. I've had instances in games as both a player and a game master where players would decide to do something that's totally left field of what was predicted, what was thought would happen. That's okay. You got to allow the players to do that. Um, I never send my players back around, at least not in a oh no, you can't do that. I let them go that route. Sometimes it works. Sometimes I will give them hints to bring them back around. It just makes it take longer, but they're getting to it organically on their own. I've had story points where I've been like, yeah, this is what I want, this is what's going to happen. And the players react totally differently. I expect one of the NPCs to behave, a one way, and because of the way the players interact with him, he reacts a totally different way. So, as a game master, what you do is you're building a world. It's not story in the sense of linear storyline, at least for me and a lot of other game masters that I have played with. It's It's basically, if you're into RPGs, video games, you probably know what an open sandbox is. An open sandbox has multiple things going on, lots of stories, lots of people you can meet, lots of things you can do, and you can go any which way. That is an open sandbox. There's a through storyline that happens, um, but you can play for 100 plus hours and still not have finished the through storyline because you've done all these extra things that are just as good for you as a player, just as exciting, and it's things that you wanted to do. You weren't forced to take one path. That is how I personally run my tabletop RPG games. I'm world building is what I'm doing, and I know my NPCs. I know my city. I know what the politics of what's happening in and around my city. Um, I have a small grasp of what's going on with the world, but because I'm not playing a world game right now, it's very much centered in a city. It's just the city and the surrounding areas. um, and I know what's in it. I know the politics. I know what the NPC's goals are, what they want to accomplish. So while I'm creating that and telling that story, the characters are interacting and giving their story of what they want. And as they say, a certain character will say that, well, I want to get higher up in the Invictus. The Invictus is a covenant in Vampire the Requiem. I want to get higher up in the Invictus. So then they start playing their character in a way. Their character's motivation now is to get higher up in the Invictus and starts doing things to accomplish those goals. And then the main things that happen in the city that affect all of the players, that's when they come together and they're working together toward one common goal. And it's back and forth always. Sometimes two or three of them are doing something, and then the other few are doing something else. And as a game master, for some people, that can be really difficult and confusing, which I totally understand because trust me, it really is difficult and confusing sometimes. My players will tell you that I forget things all the time. I won't remember an NPC's age or name or some question that they'll ask that I'm like, really, you have to ask that now? I have no clue. But it doesn't happen that often, but at least once per game, I'm sure. You'd have to ask them for that. But my point being, I got into this long discussion and it just really got me thinking about the different games, the different RPG games, and the different styles of playing. Even taking Vampire, the World of Darkness in general, whether it be Vampire the Masquerade or Vampire the Requiem, whether it be Werewolf, Mage, any of those World of Darkness games. Um, it's how you want to play that world and how you perceive that world. My game is very intrigue. It's an Invictus game, so it's very much politics and intrigue, and all that kind of thing, power plays, all that stuff. The general content and through thread of my campaign is the politics of the town of Newcastle, Maine. There are game masters that will run a World of Darkness campaign that will be very gothic and very horror and very creepy and scary. And it'll be all about the monsters that you fight. And that's really what it's about. There are some that it's all about the embrace and coming to terms with being a vampire, and it's all the emotional turmoil and the things that you lose, which I do have parts of in my game. It's kind of a combination of that because the characters did start out as mortal, so they've had to learn to live with this life now. Their requiem, as it is called. So everybody has their own. In D&D, I know people that love hack and slash. It's literally a dungeon crawl. You go in, you kill things, you find treasure. That's all they want to do. They want to level up their characters and make their characters as strong and as great as possible. I know people that want the story to come through. They want their characters to progress and grow and have a background, actually have a background in the story that might even come back later, in the chronicle, and actually do cooperative storytelling and improvisational acting, as it were. We're not all actors. I'm not an actor. You just do your best to play your character. You have conversations with the other people at the table, with the other characters, with the NPCs in a way that is real. That's all. And you don't have to actually be an actor. You don't have to do voices. You don't have to cry or anything like that, but you can get emotional and get really involved. One thing that my players have told me is that this is one of the first games where they're extremely involved in their character, in the essence of they have passion and commitment, and they feel what their character's feeling. It's their character has come to life for them, that in a standard modular Dungeons and Dragons game, they don't come to life for them in that way. Now, I'm not saying Dungeons and Dragons is always like that. If you're playing a homebrew Dungeons and Dragons game, oh yeah, you can totally get invested in your character, and it can be done exactly the way my vampire game is run. Because honestly, I would run a homebrew Dungeons and Dragons game the same way I'm running the vampire game. It would be open sandbox, and it would be allowing the characters to have a backstory and then to grow with and have some real emotional moments, and then wonderful fights. Of course, in Dungeons and Dragons you have to have the combat, but yeah, I would have it much more on the role play side, which is what I actually loved about the World of Darkness in the first place. It is set up to where it's very much role play oriented. Yes, you do have dice. You have 10-sided dice, and yes, you do have to roll for certain things. Absolutely. But it's far more role play oriented in the books, like it's actually like telling you that, than Dungeons and Dragons is. You can play Dungeons and Dragons with very little role play, with just the players chatting to each other. Well, what do you want to do? Well, let's do this. Well, let's do that. And there's not real role play. Um, in this, you have to be your character. You have to play your character, and that's the fun when you're a game master. See, I find it fun where on the spot now I have to figure out what to do, how to help them, what do they want. I had a character, a player whose character wanted to have a poker game with some of the elders. They were already at this big party, this big event, and so they wanted to invite people downstairs for a poker game. And I asked, "What's the agenda? Is this just to go have fun? We'll do a couple of rolls, see if you win any money, or do you want something more?" And he actually did have an agenda. He wanted to meet with a few of the elders, feel them out, get some insight into them, because of the whole political structure that was changing in the city. And so that's what we did. And I didn't plan that, had no plan for a poker game. They could have walked around and talked to anybody, probably gotten some of the same insight if they wanted, if they had, asked the right questions and done it right, and did some good rolls for insight. But they wanted to do the poker game. Three out of the six players went and did the poker game with these three elders and then another kindred, and they had a great time, and they got some information. They got some feelers of where everybody's at, at least these three elders. And I don't like to knock down a player's creativity. I thought that was an awesome idea. That was great. I was like, gee, wish I thought of it. And it worked out great for them, and it played perfectly with what is going on politically in the structure of the city right now. I think one of the biggest things in the bottom line, basically, of being a game master is understanding that it says right in the books, rules be damned, it's your game. What do you want it to be? How do you want to play it? If you don't like a rule about a certain roll that has to be made, or something that has to be done before X has to be done before Y can be done, you can change it. You are the game master. It's your game. And ultimately, have fun. That's the ultimate thing. I had recently asked my players, because I knew that I was going to do this. And I had had the discussion with the other game master, and I asked them, were they enjoying it? Were there things that they didn't like that I could change, for them? And all of them were thoroughly enjoying themselves. They have fun. They're invested in their characters. One of them said that this was the best character-driven game that she's been in, as far as RPG games. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm very thankful that they're having fun because I'm having fun. And we all seem to mesh together in the type of game we like and what we like to play. So you run your game the way that you feel most comfortable and what is works for you. You tell the kind of story that you like. You you play the kind of game that you would like to play as a game master. And anybody out there that wants to try being a game master, buy the book. Whatever the game is that you like, buy the book, read it, decide on a world, not an entire world, but a little city, and decide what you want to put in that city. And invite friends to play. Start with a few to keep it small, and let them play. Let them do what they want. They want to go to the tavern and get drunk. Let them get drunk and let them get in trouble. Let them get in a fight with a big guy or something like that, and then the law comes in or whatever. I mean, just let it go. Then you'll come up with your political structure and whatever's going to happen. Are they going to travel to another town? Is something going to happen where they have to save someone? Whatever the case may be, whatever the story is. But start small. If you're going to do a long campaign and not a one shot is when you're going to sit down and you're going to play for 4 hours and there needs to be a beginning, middle, and end. But if you're going to have a long campaign where you're going to keep coming back every week, every month, whatever the case may be, so yeah, start small and just let it grow, let it build, and all the ideas will come to you, especially after you know what your players want. What do they want? What are they into? Where do they keep asking to go? What questions are they asking of the NPCs? And enjoy yourself. Have fun. That's the biggest thing. Don't take this so seriously. If you've gone in depth and created this map of this dungeon and you can't wait for them to see it, and then they decide that they're not going to go down there because they're going to go check out the castle that you've done nothing with, say la vie. Make it up on the spot. Either that or hopefully you can maybe save it. Make something happen while they're on their way and save it for the next session, where you have time to build your castle. Have fun and enjoy it, and don't take it too seriously. After all, it is a game. And yes, there can be intense scenes and intense moments, and there can be some arguments once in a while because people want to do different things. But in the long run, it's a game. It's a fun game. It's a storytelling game. Cooperative storytelling. That is the best description. I stole that from Matthew Mercer from Critical Role, and it's the best description that I have heard of what a role playing game, tabletop role playing game is. It is cooperative storytelling. You're all helping to tell the story. And I love it. It's one of my favorite things. I look forward to it every week, and I hope that more people get into it and share your thoughts with us. Thoughtsfromatvgeek.com is the website. You can also tweet me at Kelly E. Neal, hashtag TFATG. And we're Thoughts from a TV Geek on Facebook. Check us out. I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll be back in 2 weeks, hopefully with Sean, and hopefully back in the old studio. See you soon.